So I'm going to introduce to you two people, Mike Barasch. Mike is the managing partner of the New York City law firm Barasch and McGarry. For the past 16 years, since the beginning, his firm's been involved and really at the forefront of the fight for people that were affected from the 9/11 community. The firm represents over 10,000 sick firefighters, police officers, EMTs, civilians, volunteers. I mean, some of the tradespeople that were there, the iron workers, the guy that runs the Feel Good Foundation, that have been diagnosed with either respiratory illnesses, which are really prevalent, or some of the cancers that have been deemed presumptive and, quote, approved from their exposure to the toxic environment and the dust at the Trade Center, or the Pentagon, which is one of the things that I want to stress here, that this is not just the Trade Center, that the Pentagon is included in this legislation. So, Mike was for years involved and instrumental in the work getting Congress to pass as a Drug Act, which again was one of those pieces of legislation that passed at the very last minute of one of our congressional sessions. The congressional legislation was named after James Zadroga. It's called the Zadroga Act, and Detective Zadroga was a New York City Police Department detective, was Mike's client. So I invited Mike to speak to him today after talking to our Office of Chief Counsel and making sure that this was appropriate, to explain the recent changes to the law and the legal rights available to our members. And particularly, this is directed to the program managers and the people who will be carrying the bulk of the work through the claim processing and the paperwork filling out and the documentation that goes with it. And then, Mike asked Richie Alice to come along too, and Richie's just finished a 38-year career with the New York City Fire Department, retiring as a deputy chief. The last 9 years, he served as an elected union representative for New York City Fire Officers Union, International Association of Firefighters, Local 854. Richie was the legislative director for the fire officers. While he was in that capacity, he was selected by the AFL-CIO as one of their lobbyists, made many trips over the 8 years to Washington to lobby for the passage of the Zadroga Act. He worked for the passage of the original legislation in 2011 and again for its reauthorization in 2015. And that's what I alluded to, that last-minute passing of that act. Mike and Rich are going to talk to you about the World Trade Center Health Registry, documentation, paperwork, and the legal proceedings that lead up to a successful claim from the fund. And Michael explained to you, I had no idea the depth of the financial resources that have been set aside in this fund, but two terrific allies for us. And again, I can't stress how important this is for our members that responded to the 9/11 attacks. This is an opportunity to begin to think about them and to take care of them.